tell us about your journey as a giant guide. Like, when did that come in? How did that come in? And then how have you been able to marry both of those?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the best role I had in my career. So I'm in year 38 of my career, 6 of them as teacher, 32 as administrator. The best role I had was teacher. And the
Mm,
reason is because I'm hardwired and passionate about teaching. So when I moved into administration, the teacher in me didn't leave.
yeah.
Um, so I've always been a leader. I look at my role is to build the capacity of those who lead. You know, the metaphor of the climbing the mountain, right? I try to be a Sherpa to the people that I lead. And I've used different, when I was a building principal, we've used the true colors. I did, what color is your gem? We did the strength finders. I was a certified trainer for Stephen Covey's 7 Habits.
Mm,
Um, so, I've always enjoyed that side of leadership. I look at leadership as the emotional side of people, and it's that self-awareness, and it begins with us. The management side is, tasks, your to-do list, checking the boxes, right? And most people can manage, few people can lead, and once we begin leading intentionally, it's a game changer because we just exponentially increase our influence. So how I got involved with Giant was when I came to Edgerton 14 years ago. I brought, the True Colors, Strength Finders, that toolbox of activities and exercises that I had done. I was invited 6 years ago to participate in a Superintendent Leader Academy. And honestly, it was in Washington, D.C. I was one of 20 invited and it was paid for. So that sounded like a pretty good gig in the summertime. I didn't know what I was going to be introduced to. And that's where we were introduced to some of the Giant tools. And that completely aligns with the belief I have in leadership that begins with self-awareness and understanding the strengths we bring. But what I really like with Giant is it puts a mirror up in front of us and allows us to see what's it like to be on the other side of us too.
mm,
And I never really understood the concept of, I didn't realize I was hardwired to have tendencies that actually undermine my influence with people. Me being in the room with certain voices um, can create discomfort and conflict simply because we see the world differently, right?
yeah.
And so I just decided I'm going to go deeper and deeper with the Giant content to where eventually I became a guide. So I've been sharing the content for the past 5 years. I've trained a lot of groups of people. Everybody in the Edgerton School District gets a minimum of a 4-hour training with me. So we can hardwire certain tools and certain language, that common vocabulary. My school board has been trained. So it's pretty cool when me as a connector and not a detail person has to communicate to 6 board members who are strong guardians. Um, I'm not guardian, right? So I lean into my guardian director of finance and personnel, and he makes me look good. They think I
Yep.
communicate well. He does. I'm smart enough to realize he can compensate for something I'm not strong at. So
Yep.
that's what I really like with the Giant language. It's been transformational for our team.
Yeah. That's
I,
awesome.
I've seen some really strong personalities, strong pioneers, strong guardian personalities, literally transform personally and professionally.
Mm, mm. What a joy to be a part of it. Thank you for bringing the leadership and the multiplication of it to your people and to our people this morning.
Yeah,
So thanks for being here.
you bet.
Thank you for sharing that story. That was great. Really, really beautiful synopsis of just what it means to own what you have and give it away.
Yep.
So that's beautiful. Will you tell us about the core process today? That's our tool. So welcome, everybody. We are getting schooled today by Superintendent Dennis.
Well, you're really not getting.
So
So I have to clarify: core process or team performance assessment.
you bring what you got. I've heard that you have something special planned for us.
I'll share with
Similar
you
too.
what I have, and if I need to connect the core process directly to it, sure.
You don't.
I know.
Bring what you got, brother.
Actually, what I have done is the core process is basically what I will share with you, but it'll just be disguised in a
Yep.
different way. But
That's it.
actually, because we've done it with my team, and then I've taught them the core process, and they'll say to me, "Can we just do the fishbone diagram?"
Right.
So it
Bring the
really
fish.
is. It's the
That's
fish.
the
All
one.
right. Can I share?
That's
Can
the
I
one.
share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Let me pull that up.
As you're sharing, we were at a conference a few months ago with Dennis. I met Dennis, and Dennis was showing me this fishbone diagram, and it just blew my mind because it's Dennis innovating after imitating for a while, and so I loved it. I was like, Dennis, you got to share this with our people so our people can lock it in, screenshot it, or we can pass it along after the toolkit session. So, Dennis, thanks for hanging.
You bet. Can you guys see the screen?
No.
You can't. All right, let me get back out of this. All right, now, oops.
Yes, it's doing something.
Yeah, wow.
One of the mirrors.
Okay.
We've entered the matrix.
Holy cow.
This is incredible.
That's pretty crazy. That is not the tool I was going to share.
It's been a long time since I've seen a computer react that way.
Holy cow. What's it doing to us, folks?
Go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay. If I can find that.
Eddie, do you have the...
I can take away, withdraw co-host permission.
Yeah, do
and
that.
Share my own.
Eddie, do you have...
Eddie, if I share my deck with you, will that work?
Yes.
Okay, and it
for sure.
comes through Google. It comes through Google Slides. Is that all right?
However you want. I'll open it up for you.
I'm going to share it right now with you.
Okay.
So the core process.
I'll tell you where we're going to begin. Okay, so it's coming to you right now.
So it's I'll fill the space for a second. The core process is something that we have at Giant that essentially forces you, after you've gone through discussing the problem you want to solve or the goal you want to achieve, starts with calling it, naming it, and then it goes into owning it. But FISH is an adaptation or something different that helps us understand where we are as a team and what's holding us back. So really focusing on problems to solve or goals to achieve.
We got it. So, okay, so Eddie, if you want to click ahead a few slides.
You got it.
We'll keep going. We'll keep going. It'll go to the very first, I think it's 2 more. There we go. So if you go back, and then I'll go through this pretty quick, but if you go back one, so basically that's kind of my story. I just shared it from Madison, Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison. I was a teacher for 6 years, principal and administrator for the past 32. And then I also teach at Whitewater. So if people want to become a principal in the state of Wisconsin and get a degree through Madison, they have to unfortunately go through me, but they get a lot of Giant content. All right, next slide. So here we talked about a little bit managing versus leading, and I just look at the difference is managing tasks and things. It's production. Leadership is actually influencing people and helping building capacity of people and moving them to a higher level. And part of leadership is understanding the heart side. I was looking for a graphic of an elephant, a person riding an elephant, and if you can think of the person represents the brain, the facts, the elephant represents the heart and emotion. And when these two collide, my experience has been emotions always win. And we've probably been in situations where, I can give, this is where with the Guardian voice, one of the leadership insights is you can be right and wrong at the same time. You can be right with your facts, but if they are presented in a manner that it's something emotional. We dealt with this during the pandemic. I can give you a lot of facts about why we should or shouldn't mask, but if it's emotional for people, they're just not listening to the brain logic because they're filling in with their own emotions. So leadership is understanding the difference. These are just different things that I shared that I've done in my 32 years as administrator. That's kind of where I'm at now. And now we'll move into why we're here. So why are we here? Next slide. Why we're here is Gallup did a study on the effectiveness of teams. And what they found is teams function at less than 60% of their overall effectiveness. And so I use the core process to take a look at. Giant has a team performance assessment. It's got 70 questions. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, and you're going to get an average score in 5 different critical areas of teams on a metric of 5. Next slide will show that these are the areas that online assessment is going to take a look at. So we're going to get a score of how are we doing in communication amongst our team, relationships, alignment, execution capacity. So we're going to end up, and when my team takes this, I'm going to get a score for our team. And this is what we did. We benchmarked it last summertime. Was these are the 5 different areas, and our overall score is 84.4%. Now, be mindful, we're a few years into this, so we didn't start out 5 years ago at that level. We've intentionally built up to it. The process I'm going to share comes from this book, and it's based on the premise. You can keep going, Eddie. It's based on the premise of these 3 questions. Where are we now? Then we have to figure that out first. Once we figure that out, we decide where do we want to go, and then the last thing is how are we going to get there. And so that's kind of the core process. The core process, if you go back to it, is the where are we now is calling it and owning it. And part of the owning it is where do we want to go. Go back a slide. Go back.
Forward, backward.
Yeah, there we go. You're okay.
Okay.
So,
okay. Sorry.
The where are we now, when we do the team performance assessment, that's kind of the call. The calling it and owning it is there's our data. Where are we now? So if you go to the next one. So here's how simple this begins to look. First thing is we just create a line. Now this line doesn't represent the team performance assessment. If we wanted it to represent, it would be 0 to 100. But this is but if you can take that concept and apply it to the principle of what I'll share. So the first thing is where are we now? We would put up whatever our score is for whatever area. Then we determine a target. Well, for a 2.5 now, and we want to be a 3.5. Next slide is there's going to always be a gap. Unless we're at 100%, there will always be a gap. That's what leads us to the fishbone question of why is there that, go back one up, Eddie, you can go there. One more, right there. Why aren't we a 3.5 now? So if we're currently this score, but we want to be at a higher level, why aren't we there? And so what we do in this process is we just brainstorm ideas. We put them on Post-it papers. The team puts them up on the board, and then you begin to categorize how, similarities, and that's what we call the fishbone. So what we have is we have reasons why we're not scoring to the level we would like to be scoring. Then what I'll facilitate in this process is for the team to identify the categories and pick one that they want to run through. Kind of the second half, the know yourself is questions 1, 2, right? Call it, own it. To lead yourself, that's the respond and execute. So now we've called it through the fishbone. Here's where we're at, here's where we want to be. Now we're going to respond with pick one of these fish bones to create an action plan and then execute it. So if you go to the next slide, this is what the process will look like. Yeah, so we can see that step 1 is determine where are we now and what's our target. Step 2 is why aren't we there? And step 3 is it's really literally this simple. It's now respond. What are you going to do? Who's going to do it and when? And then I'll give you some examples of teams that I've led and what this looks like. So the next few slides are going to just be teams that I've one more, Eddie, will come back. We don't need that one. There we go. So this was a group, I think actually these might be, this is actually my team. Skip this one and go to the next one, Eddie, it'll be a little clearer. So here in the category of relationships, if you look at that, you can see that at the top, our score was, where are we now? We're a 90%. Where do we want to be? We want to be a 93%. they've done this enough that they didn't write the question on the fishbone, but they're coming up with ideas of why aren't we there now? And then you can see their action plan. What we're going to do is, one thing is, we've made a commitment. When we come to the meeting, close your device. You don't need your device, and if somebody needs it, then we'll instruct people to open it. But we realize as a team that's not respectful when you're looking at your computer while you're supposed to be engaged with the team. And then also they identified intentional breaks. The next one, communication. This was the same team did too. So we're at an 83.8. They want to be an 88, kind of the exact same process. And then what we'll do with my team is every couple of months, we'll do a check-in. So the people that worked on this plan, I'll have them just give a check-in. How are we doing? Because what we don't want to do is create a plan in August and not revisit it until we post-assess in May. We want to make sure that there's ongoing touches to make sure that we're doing the work that we committed to. All right, next one. These are just, there we go. This is another school district that I'm working with. So their alignment score was, it looks like it's about a 71%. They want to get to a 77%. You can see their process and their action plan. Actually, that was the group I was just meeting with before this. This was their execution plan. And again, where they started, where they want to be. And we did do a check-in, and what's really, what's energizing is they do just a check-in throughout the year to start to see their action plan actually begin to come to fruition. Okay, next one. This is just another team. These were their 3 plans, hard to read, so we'll skip, but this is actually another, go back one, Eddie. This is another client. You can see that people like to get creative with them if they want to. So they actually made theirs look like a fish. But again, this group I will be meeting with again in February, and we'll do a second check-in. We did back in October a check-in to just see, are they on target to closing that gap? We'll do another one in February before they do their end of the year assessment on that. And then lastly, this is just an example of basically how effective the process can be. So the Whitewater School District, if you look at the bottom, there's more titles. This is before they did the online assessment. This is back to Giant TV a couple of years ago. Before they had that online assessment that narrowed it to 5, they had more. But you can see in Whitewater, the gray represents their benchmark score. The red represents how did they execute their plan and post score after doing that. Basically, I call it the fishbone process. And you can see in every area, they made an increase of about 20%. And that is really common with the teams that I work with. And it's through the intentionality of having a process and finding what is the low-hanging fruit. And within every team, there's low-hanging fruit. And just as we repeat this process year after year, that low-hanging fruit gets a little bit higher and higher. But it's but incrementally, with my experience, 5 years with the Edgerton, our administrative team, is every year we're making incremental growth. And until we close the gap and get to 100%, there's always going to be room to improve.
So good. Dennis, we are at time, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew Pauli Dennis at yahoo.com, and his number's right here. We'll send out a recording so you guys will have those locked in. Whenever we saw this for the first time, even if you're new to Giant and don't know the core process, it was so helpful for me in being a feeler or somebody who's not logical and systematic to realize this is where I am, this is where I want to go. And I need to make a list of all the things that are stopping me, the gap to stopping me from get there. As easy as, we're still kind of January, February, like New Year's resolutions, right? Like, this is where my weight is, this is where I want it to be, or this is the progress I'm making in school, this is where I want to be. And so what does it look like to be able to say, these are all the gaps? Okay, now what is the game plan for each one of those things that we've listed? Guys, take it with you, make it useful. I found it really helpful because as a person who's not lean that way, who doesn't lean towards systems and processes, it gives me a system and process that at one point is very, in some ways, objective, right? It's a very simple process that we can put into practice really fast. So, Dennis, thank you so much for being with us. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
Absolutely. God bless everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.